Good day. My name, for broadcast purposes, is Grandpa 1940. I have waited to speak on the subject of my wife's death and inquest, in deference to Her Majesty's coroner, to the legal process of the inquest system, but mainly to ensure that my beloved wife is given her due in reminding everyone involved that no one is above the law. To be human is to feel emotion. From the sounds of 65,000 voices, all of which were hoping against hope that England would win something, to the sound of a trumpet sounding the last post, I understand the emotions which grab the very core of a human's mind, that very thing which separates us from the animals. When Shakespeare penned those words which he gave to Henry V in the scenes before the Battle of Agincourt, did he wonder or even imagine that somehow the miracle of moving pictures would immortalize his words in film, as Laurence Olivier brought that fervour to his army of bowmen before the field of Agincourt? Some may scorn the bagpipes, but to a semi-detached Gaelic mind such as mine, the skirl of Amazing Grace or Flowers of the Forest bring a tangible moment where the skin just tightens around the back of one's neck. The heart beats just that bit faster. The pride in those emotions surfaces for many. For my wife, it was the majestic Song to the Moon from the opera Rusalka by Dvorak, sung by Milada Supratova. We both loved classical music. My wife veered more towards music from ballet, as she was also possibly happiest when watching her favourites. My late brother, knowing that we were due across to England on holiday some 4 decades ago, booked tickets to see Nureyev, and my wife thought she was nearing Nirvana, watching her hero dance to the music she adored. My own taste veered towards the music of the masters, Beethoven, Mozart, Vivaldi. But the music she loved most was that played as the curtain slowly closed around her coffin, was chosen by myself. But if I had only known, that same music could have continued to soothe her troubled mind for months, if not for years. Of all the myriad human emotional lamentations, without doubt the most common is the expression, "If only I had known." As I kissed my wife farewell, as I raised my phone and sadly snapped the last image, as I now know it to be, of my wife, as I watched her be wheeled away towards the lifts and the awaiting wards, if only I had known. If only I had known that at least one man would treat her as just a case, not a human being, but as an exercise in ridding him and his hospital of a tiresome presence if things didn't go as planned. I doubt if the word criminal even strayed across his consciousness as he phoned this unsuspecting husband, now sick with worry over a hospitalized injured wife, and he entered upon a long, prepared monologue about how elderly people could not withstand the shock of resuscitation, and often did not survive for long, even if they recovered. The words, "do not attempt resuscitation," or "do not attempt cardiopulmonary resuscitation," form part of both NHS and hospital trust documentation. But, as I discovered, their use is hushed, hindered, and indeed rarely spoken out loud. If I had only known, that this arrogant scumbag would slap a DNR notice upon my frail, injured wife's bedside file, because in his fucking opinion, it was in her best interest to just be left to die without at least a comforting hand from a man and a husband who had faithfully kept his promise in sickness and in health till death us to part. If only I had known that the ruling hospital document for the DNA CPR acronym had not been revised for over 5 years, and even then was treated like another piece of hospital documentation, of which there are hundreds, I would have acted and spoken very differently in defence of how my wife, of some 53 years of marriage, would be treated and respected, instead of, as she actually was treated, as a piece of garbage to be got rid of as soon as possible. The sheer arrogance exhibited by the hospital trust in its documentation is only matched by the same arrogance which infests the people who carry out the demands and operations noted by the pages which state how the process known as DNR or do not resuscitate is operated. The needs of both patient and the family caring for that patient are ill served by that document, in or out of date as it so obviously is. Time after time, in both national NHS and hospital documents, the statement is made that patients or legally appointed family members should be told and encouraged to understand the DNA CPR legislation as judged to be necessary. Unfortunately, I was never ever told that a DNAR notice featured on my wife Jacqueline's bedside file, as I might have laid siege to the whole bloody hospital. As I discovered during the actual inquest, the DNR notice may have sped my wife's passage towards an untimely death. She was doing fine after the operation, but her breathing became erratic. But instead of immediately administering CPR, which might have aided recovery, she was left untouched by the hospital team. Her progress towards death was unimpeded by any effort to sustain life simply and solely because of the presence of that DNA CPR notice, which has the full effect of law. There is no appeal against a DNA CPR document in terms of the NHS and those who administer it. The only concession I achieved during the inquest was when the surgeon, who actually seemed to be a fairly decent enough bloke, said the process should maybe have been handled better. My own thoughts on the process are, unfortunately, unprintable and unspeakable. I thank you for your time, and I hope to see you again. Good day.